Hello, Díolcha Tola and bonjour. Welcome to episode 3 of Study Hub. So what we have for you this week on the episode? Well, we are covering one of the most talked about papers today. Maths paper 1 higher level is under the microscope, but don't you worry, we will get you through it.
I just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.
Don't be afraid. You can't be afraid when Louise Boylan from the Institute of Education is here to answer all the questions. And when we hear that music, it can mean only one thing. If you want to be a success Logan Roy style and make billions, then you want to do well in your business studies exam. And we're delighted to welcome Gavin Duffy from the Dublin Academy of Education, the man who wrote the book. He is here. Gavin, you're very welcome to the programme. But then in the middle of all this, what should you eat?
Make a 5-minute lunch using the greens that are about to go bad in your fridge. Spray a pan, put a giant handful of spinach or whatever you have. It cooks in about 30 seconds.
Everybody's favourite dietitian Louise Reynolds is here to tell us how to fill the fridge, who you should and should not be paying attention to, and what you can eat to keep you going while you navigate this marathon. 3 of you are very welcome to this week's Study Hub. But we're going to get started and dive right into paper 1 higher level maths first. Louise, you are so welcome back into our studio here. Look, we've so much to talk about, and we are going to reference that kind of so-called controversy of last year for this paper. You're laughing. We will get to that in a few minutes. But first of all, let's talk about this year's paper. The overall view of the paper, you and I have discussed changes over the years, but things are mainly back to where they used to be. Is that correct to say?
But they're back to the way they were last year.
Yep.
So it's in 2 halves, obviously. Mm-hmm. So Section A, Section B. So Section A is your context, your skills questions, right? And your Section B is your context and applications questions. So Section A are what we call the short questions. They're not actually that short. They're just shorter than the longer questions. So they're 30 marks each, and the students have to answer 5 out of 6. So they have a bit of choice there. They can opt to not do one of them. On Section B, they have 4 questions worth 50 marks each. They have to answer 3 out of the 4.
Now, Section A, you and I call this, you call this, and I borrow it, the drill and skill section, right? Drill and skill. Again, would you mind explaining that phrase to us, what you think that means when students are looking at Section A?
Yeah, sure. So this is more understanding the procedural processes with the maths, right? So being able to, here's an equation, find X. Here's a graph, what does that mean? Here's a triangle, find a missing side. That they might see some proofs popping up there, some derivations popping up there. It's what I would feel more the stuff they can be more prepared for.
Okay.
Then the Section B is where we have like a story, right? It's a context, it's a long question, it's a 50-mark question, generally goes over 3, maybe 4 pages on the exam paper, and they will try and tie in several topics into the one question. So you could have a question about, say, a company, and the company manufactures, say, paper cups, and the paper cups are in the shape of a cone, so they can ask a bit about the cone and the volume and the area, and then it might go into the company makes this profit over 12 months, and here's a graph, and now can you find what was their maximum profit? Was their profit increasing or decreasing? And they can tie in an awful lot of different topics into one question.
Now, ding ding, you've just really addressed one of those big issues, which we know that a lot of students have this thing that they can silo topics,
Yeah.
Question 1 is this and question 2 is that. That's gone, isn't it? I mean, the topics all bleed into each other.
Oh, yeah, for
which
sure.
makes a more exciting paper.
Absolutely.
But the problem is it means you can't be dropping stuff.
No, you can't leave anything out, and that's
Nothing.
the big question. Nothing out.
Out of the
Nothing
whole
out.
course.
No.
It's February. Give me a break. Nothing.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you can, but then you're taking a risk that it might pop up in more. You can only leave 2 questions out in the whole paper, one from Section A, one from Section B. So if you decide to leave out a topic and it comes up in more than one question, you've shot yourself in the foot there. So I absolutely wouldn't leave out anything.
Within that, though, there must be some topics that are really important, that you really want, like Jean Kelly was talking about for ordinary level, right? Percentages, they're everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
For you, what are those big letters, the bold
letters? Well,
letter
algebra is a biggie.
Really?
Algebra
again,
massive.
Right through.
Yeah, well, it's the foundations for all their maths, so they have to have a good foundation. Equations pop up everywhere. They have to be able to solve algebraic equations in all different types, all different forms, and they can pop up anywhere. So algebra, they have to have their algebra locked down. Trigonometry is another one as well. Trigonometry pops up in a lot of different topics. They can shoehorn, for want of a better word, trigonometric stuff into other topics.
Yeah.
Differential calculus as well is a big one. Right? So differential calculus can come up even just as a little part in certain questions, but it again can be spread across many, many questions. So they're the biggies.
Right.
And then, if you're going to go paper 2, probability and statistics can kind of keep coming up again and again and again.
Okay. Now, we mentioned about the controversy last year, right?
Sure.
And that higher level paper 1 question that threw people. A year later, can you talk us through kind of what happened, what your perspective is on it, and what students should learn from that experience? Because it became a bit of a storm, didn't it?
It did. I think what the students need to be aware of is that, this is an exam of your understanding, not of your learning as such, right? I always say you can't learn maths. You have to practice maths. You have to understand maths. So if you're going to sit and you're going to go back over all the exam papers and try to go, okay, that's come up 3 times in the last 10 years, so I better know that. That's not going to really work, right? Because
if you're looking for patterns, question 3 is always this or whatever. You're saying forget about
patterns, and I always say to my students, they go, oh, this comes up every second year. I go, no, it doesn't. It came up 2 years in a row, or then it didn't come up for 3 years. There's no patterns in your maths.
So knock that on the head.
Oh yeah, don't even start looking for it, right?
Okay.
And as I say, the only thing we can guarantee is that there'll be something there in June that has never come up before. There's a question or a way of being asked or a style that has never been examined before. So what it means is the students need to not focus on patterns, as you say, not focusing on past exam papers as such, focusing on the overall understanding of the syllabus.
Because what threw people last year, and I heard about it anecdotally, was people were really upset in the exam hall. It's not that they couldn't maybe even understand that question, right? But it threw them for the rest of the paper. The impact of it.
Yeah.
And I presume what you're going to be saying is, now, be prepared. There will be possibly a question. It's higher level maths. There's a reason it's higher level maths.
Yeah.
But don't let it derail you. Go, that's the tricky question, but let me get on with it.
Exactly.
Is that fair?
Yeah, no.
Or am I putting a lot of words into your mouth?
No, you're fine. No, that's exactly what it is, and it's a vital skill. Because
I was stunned by how thrown people were.
Yeah, it really was.
Awful.
It really was amazing. And they just weren't. There was a few things on last year's exam that hadn't been examined since they changed the course.
But they're in the curriculum.
Oh no, it's absolutely fair enough. I thought it was a nice paper, but it did really freak people out, and it upset a lot of students. I think as well, if you're in an exam hall and you see somebody upset, that's going to have a knock-on effect.
Well, everybody's nervous.
Well. Everybody's
it's a
already
big day.
Nervous.
Yeah. Okay.
So what the students really need to do is, first of all, of course, keep the head.
Yep.
Stay calm. Read a question. If they go, I'm not really sure, just move on. Do the questions that you can do. Don't focus on the things you can't do. Keep calm, and then come back at the end and try the bits that maybe threw you on the first time round.
Okay, now talking about structure and timing and all that, we've said it's a 2.5 hour paper. So what timing am I thinking of when I walk into the exam hall?
So for the section A, at the absolute maximum, you should be spending half of the marks for the question. So a 30-mark question, 15 minutes.
And be strict on that.
And strict. Now, the problem is if you do that, you don't have time to look at the clock or sharpen your pencil or use the toilet, right? So you don't want to stick to that. You want to come down a bit.
Okay.
So what I would say is to try and do an hour on each half. So for part A, you want to be doing 12 minutes per question, right? 5 questions, 12 minutes per question. Cut and run then and move on. For part B, you want to be doing 20 minutes per question, and that gives you 30 minutes at the end to come back and look at the questions that threw you. What's also really important for the students is that oftentimes the marks are near the starts of the questions.
Yes, talk to me about that, because I had the sense of fruit hanging off a tree. You're like, come on, pluck it, keep going at the start.
Exactly. So you can get students, and I can understand it, they're trying to solve maybe the last part of a question. They're like, I'm going to get it. I'm looking at the clock, I'm going to get it. And all they're doing is robbing time from the next question. And what they'll find in August or September when the marking scheme comes out is the bit they were fighting for was only worth maybe 2 marks. Oh. And it cost them 10 marks somewhere else. So
because these are dogged students and they've put huge work in and they want to solve it, right?
Exactly.
But you're saying be strategic.
Yeah.
You got it. It's a game nearly. You have to be very smart.
And just let it go. Just move on. Then go, okay, I'll come back to it, but move on to the next question and get the starts of the questions tend to be easier than the ends of the questions, obviously.
If only somebody would write a song called Let It Go.
I know.
If only somebody would.
If only there were. Be Elsa, guys, let it go.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because I imagine that. And look, we know things like show the work, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But your big thing is you want students to build up their confidence, leave the tough questions till the end, not start with them. I
think go in, they often say, oh, how will I know which question to leave out? And I'm saying you'll know You'll know. You'll go in and you look and you go, nope, I'm not doing question 3. Don't like the look of that.
So don't waste your time on it. Move on.
Don't waste your time on it.
Okay.
Just go in and look at whatever question. It might be question 4 and you go, oh yeah, I can do that, and get going. That's the key. Just get going. Just get the head down and get started. Don't agonise over will I, won't I. Just get into it. And, you know, you'll see a question that you'd go, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yes.
And that'll build your confidence, and then move on.
Now, studying, you've already mentioned this. Your whole thing about maths is practice. It's like piano in your life.
Piano.
You have a sermon on this.
Yeah,
Off you go. Give us your sermon.
No, well, I just say you can't learn maths. If you try to learn maths, it's not going to work for you. As we've said, there'll be questions in the exam that are purely testing your understanding, not have you learned something off by heart. So if you don't have an understanding, then you're not going to be able to answer the questions. So what you have to do is practice. You need to go in and practice, pick a topic, break your course down into small topics, break the topics down into even smaller topics. So say you focus on your algebra, then spend a time, you know, can you solve cubic equations? Can you solve simultaneous equations? You know, can you work with logs? Break it up into these little topics and then practice. It's all about practice.
And you have a big thing about piecemeal. It's that bit every night. Don't sort of say all day Saturday be higher level paper.
No,
maths,
little and often. 20 minutes, little and often. Yeah.
You make it sound
for sure.
so easy. Study buddy, tell me about this. Because we know during lockdown we talked about this. People were great at kind of hooking up with each other online and supporting each other through it, right? You think that's useful?
It's very effective for some students, I think.
What, you're firing questions at each other and
well, no, what I think works very well is if they pick, say, a question and they're going to do, so 2 pals and they've decided, okay, we've studied our cubic equations, now we're going to do this question.
Yeah.
And then do the question and then swap it and see can they correct each other's. And it also gets them into the mindset of how the exam is marked. Like understanding the marking scheme is a vital skill within this exam as well. You have to be careful who you pick. You don't want somebody who's going to go, I can't believe you got that wrong, you're such an idiot. Right, you want to pick a
like
friend.
A sibling maybe, yeah,
a trusted friend, somebody who's, you know, of the same ability of you're both working your best and you can look at each other's work, because correcting peer corrections is a really important skill as well, you know, and they learn a lot from that.
Finally, can I ask you about students who are dithering right now and really maybe feeling a little overwhelmed and contemplating the jump down to ordinary level? It's what, kind of midterm break time, right?
Yeah.
Where is your head at in terms of advice when students come up to you about
Sure,
this?
yeah. Well, most will have just completed their mocks, so they'll have a good feeling of how...
Yeah, but mocks are marked harder,
Yeah,
no? Is that anecdotal?
I think that's kind of anecdotal. I think they're just not as prepared. I mean, we're still months out from the exam. It's like, you know, you're training for a marathon. You're not ready to run it 3 months before the date of the marathon, is the way I think. And also there's no adjustment in marking schemes for mocks, as the SEC can, you know, tweak if a question,
like
if they've overpitched a question or something, So in general, I do think students don't do as well in the mocks as they do in the real thing, but it's not dramatic. You know, I did something recently. I had a student saying, I got 20% in my mocks. Do you think I'll be able to get a H1? And I said, well...
Gosh, that's a leap.
It's a leap. I said,
that's an interesting understanding of maths.
Ask yourself, why did you get 20%? You know, is it just you didn't open the book and you went in and thought you could wing it? If that's the case, maybe. But if you really studied hard and you still got 20%, then maybe not. You know, it's a very individual question. It's a very to each student.
It's too early to call it, I think, is what you're maybe saying.
I think the student in their heart of hearts will know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
One
that's
of those.
what it is. Yeah.
Oh, the old heart of hearts.
I know.
You don't have disappointment. I mean, all this stuff, I hear it all. Listen, Louise, thank you so much for joining us with all that. And just to say that Louise has recorded 10 brilliant video tutorials to help you get ready for Leaving Cert Maths Higher Level. You'll find them all on RT Learn Study Hub page, and we will post a link to them as well. Now it's time to get busy with business studies, and who better to talk to than the man who wrote the book No Pressure, Gavin Duffy, author of Down to Business, Leaving Cert textbooks, and also teacher at the Academy of Education in Dublin. Gavin, you're first timer with us. You're very welcome to Into the Study Hub. Now, you've heard what Louise had to say, so over to you. But I suppose, could we start with that format of the paper, the duration? Because it's amazing how people can get a bit blurry about it all.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
talk us through the structure and the timings and the format of the paper.
Okay, the paper itself is 3 hours. So they have a short section, an ABQ, and then a long section. So the shorts and the ABQ are both worth 20% each, and the longs are about 60%.
Okay.
So most students will go in and just jump into the shorts because they're there at the start. You get through them quite quick, 20-25 minutes, and they just kind of tend to get stuck into them. and then a lot would then flick into doing the ABQ, and then spend a whole lot of time there that they shouldn't. So that's the big issue around the kind of layout or timing with it.
I was going to go back to you about that because the ABQ, it's funny how each paper has that little section that students tend to focus on. In English paper 2, it's the poets, what poet, right? In business, it's the ABQ. What spooks them? Why does this kind of derail them a little bit?
It just seems to get elevated, in their minds. And like,
is it because it can come from anywhere in the course? Is it the range?
It's that there's no choice in it. So in the shorts, you've got great choice. You've got 8 out of 12, and they're very comfy.
Like, give us an example of a short question. That
a short, they could give you like 5 true or false statements, and you just have to literally go true or false about it. It could be a mix and match type stuff. So there's lots of shorts like that you don't actually, they're closed ended, and students could just guess. There's no negative marking, so
they feel doable, right?
Exactly, yeah, and they kind of just tend to really enjoy doing them. Like, where the ABQ itself then it's based on Unit 1, 2, and 3 this year, and it's just 3 parts, no choice at all. And I suppose it's just that it's a bit different. I think a lot, like, teachers might put it off to later in the year, and students just don't fully twig exactly what they're supposed to do. And
so what? It's nearly a branding failure or something.
Yeah, it feels that way. Yeah,
it becomes a bit of a thing, right?
Yeah.
And what's your advice? Maybe if a teacher is maybe deferring it a little bit or whatever, if somebody's listening today and thinking about it, like, how do you prepare for the ABQs then?
Well, I suppose you have to cover Unit 1, 2, and 3 in detail anyway. But that'll really stand you this year because you'll have 3 longs to do and shorts as well. But within the ABQ itself, it's kind of practice, like doing a lot of sample.
That old concept, huh? Yeah, practicing.
It's a weird one. Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah, but it's presented like a reading comprehension, so it's nearly like a first year English class, and you get this story.
So what? It would be a business story?
A business story, made up business story. So like hypothetical one, like
a
wedding planner or a construction company, and but essentially it's written so that you can just give the keywords from the course, and students really need to keep that in mind when they're reading it, because
it's not an English paper.
Exactly. And the story is not important. It's like when I'm writing sample ABQs, I write the question first, write the answer next, and then all the student has to do is get a sentence from the actual text that is relevant to whatever the keywords are.
Okay.
So imagine it was management skills and leading is one.
Okay.
The student then has to just go and find a sentence somewhere that someone was leading. Like,
that's straightforward.
That's straightforward, yeah. And then they would get nearly all the marks for saying leading, the definition of leading, and then they just have to give a link for it. So, but students
that's a positive question,
yeah,
right?
Completely, I mean,
that's, if you've done the work, it's there kind of question, and to know that it's there, okay.
And for things like enterprise and skills and characteristics is likely to come up this year. It's been up on 4 of the last 6.
Say that to us again, Gavin, you were saying, sorry?
Well, I'd say, it should be on everyone's radar anyway, I'd say, but enterprise skills and characteristics was up 4 of the last 6 times that enterprise was on the ABQ, so it'd be very, very likely. So essentially the examiner has written a story, and in one paragraph there's going to be 6 or 7 enterprise skills or characteristics there. So you should I would get my students before they even read the text to try and write out 5 or 6 enterprise skills and characteristics, and like you said,
before even the text, just to kind of
get them to know what they're looking for, just and so that they don't get caught up in the story, because it doesn't matter so much what's in there. It's just that you can tell the examiner, I've studied the course, here's proactive, here's what it means, here's a sentence from the course. So like that, then if they only got 3, say, reading the ABQ can help them, because they might read something that Joanne invested 10,000 and then they might go risk taker, and then it'll actually help them. Like I think when you practice them and realise that the links, it's more finding the links, I think, that they struggle with. So practice really would help there.
Okay, now I love this, all killer no filler, right? Long questions. Again, we're not looking for ASHD here, get on with it.
Oh, completely.
So talk us through the long questions. How long is a long question? Like, what am I thinking about in terms of content really for that?
Yeah, I'd say as brief as possible. Like
really?
Yeah, I would say it's very kind of keyword based subject. So once you have the good stuff in there, you'll get all the marks. And
so the examiner wants you to kind of state the thing, the term.
Just state it, yeah. No filler, no introduction sentences. And a lot of students get caught up with rewriting the question, trying to say one of the most important things is, and like they just don't want to see that at all. Like the examiner is literally just scanning, looking for a word, and if you have the word in, like a common
but it
thing,
almost seems nearly just rude not to say, well,
no, it's
from
just
the English,
straight to it, yeah.
Of course, that's so in our brains, really.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're saying no, just get on.
None at all. Like there's no graded response. So if the marks were 2 plus 3, for example, that's 2 for your kind of statement and 3 for developing it.
Yep.
You can only get 3 or 0. So you either have the words and you get them all, or you don't have them at all. And like it sounds harsh, but it's actually brilliant, because the best student in the country if you just have the keyword, you're getting the same marks as them. So once you just
that
go
seems
through your
nearly
stuff,
unfair, but you're saying that's strategic about it.
that's pretty much it. Like, so just get straight down into the good keywords, and I'd say in your study, just constantly test yourself on them. Do you know what they are? The marking
And your
schemes are
tips
great.
around the verbs, right? Using the illustrate, evaluate, this kind of stuff. Know your verbs really clearly.
Completely. Yeah. So when the examiner sets the paper, illustrate means you have to give an example as well.
Okay.
So you should still give all your keywords absolutely first, like state and explain it, and then add in an example after. Or evaluate means, again, give your keywords first, state and explain it, and then you have to give your opinion and justify it. So evaluate is one that students really find tricky. Like,
why?
They have to form an
nail
opinion.
it, is it?
Yeah, they have to form an opinion, and they struggle with giving an opinion on something that they might have just like learnt off. So,
what do I do? Give me a tip on that for handling that.
So what I would do, say it was evaluate the matrix structure. I'd say that could be another one up
Ding,
the top
ding,
of the
ding,
list
ding,
for
ding, 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 ding.
I would give like benefits of the matrix structure and challenges, and then try and hold back either a benefit or challenge, and just present it like your opinion. So, like, in my opinion, a challenge is the employee might find it hard to know which work to prioritise because they have two bosses, and then you're kind of using a challenge to make your opinion, and you get the marks that way.
Love it. Now, the other thing, glad to see pay rises and something like that might come up. Always interested in hearing about that. But in terms of topical questions, this course is changing, right? We're rolling out a new course come next year. So sometimes what happens is they start looking at the dark corners of the curriculum, to give them a run out. What's your feeling around the approach this year?
Well, I suppose, the examiner knows that there's some areas that could potentially be cut out or, by students. So therefore they tend... It seems like they tend to throw in one or two little curveballs into the places that they know
Leaving Cert business.
Students will focus. Exactly. So in Unit 1 last year in the paper, they had an extra question, kind of since COVID they've had one in.
Okay.
And in both of the Unit 1 questions, then they had like part ones that were a little tricky. So I was trying to look at what might kind of come up in the ordinary level paper last year. Sometimes they trial a question at ordinary and then it might appear in the higher. They mentioned a credit note, so kind of knowing that a credit note is an option for you, but there's nothing legal about it. Like if you brought back something and you were looking for a refund, you don't have to accept a credit note. So they could ask something like that. Or in the
no.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Yeah.
That's me as a citizen as opposed to Leaving Cert student.
So if you had like a pair of jeans that there was something wrong with them and you brought them back, you're entitled to a refund, repair or replacement. So a shop might offer you a credit note and you might just be happy to take it because you wanted another pair of jeans or something, but there's no
it's
no
your
law.
choice.
Exactly. Yeah. So the law would cover you to get your money. So little bits like that, I'd say. Yeah.
And then finally trends. Students are obsessed. We talked about this with higher level. They're obsessed with the last number of years this came up or that came up. What's your advice around that? People excavating past papers for trends.
Yeah, like I'd go through a good bit of the analysis of it, but like that, it's more just pushing them towards. I really know these well. It's not that you can leave out lots of the other stuff, but
how busy is it as a paper? The sense I'm getting from you is that you are hitting the ground running in terms of time.
Time wise, like you have about 20-25 minutes for the shorts and about 40-45 minutes for the ABQ. So you wouldn't want to be past an hour and 10 minutes into your 3 hours at the end of your ABQ. But most students would be, and I suppose that'd be the biggest thing I would really urge people, if they haven't done their mocks yet, make sure they time exactly how long each question takes.
And don't
practice
get bogged
ABQs.
Down.
Exactly, and it's the first thing you do. So first chance for them to write freely, not in their little short sections.
Yes.
And they just want to show off, particularly the good ones, and they just get stuck then, like an hour and a half, 2 hours in, and they're scrambling then for the 60% of the paper that's left. So,
60%.
Yeah. So the longs, like I would say, shouldn't, like you were asking about how much to write, like they shouldn't go over an A4 page. Just state something, develop it with two kind of good kind of points of keywords. Skip a line or two to leave yourself a bit of space then to come back if you've a bit of time later.
And
you
leave
can
the
come back and add
space
in little
again.
bits
Yeah,
of
you
keywords.
can always do that. I mean,
It's
exam
literally-
papers should look a bit shambolic in some ways because you're over and back and correcting and stuff. And
Exactly.
the examiner goes with you on that.
Yeah, exactly. So just give yourself lots of space to do it so you're not cramming something in. So between each part of every question, just space it out. Skip 2-3 lines. And, give yourself as much room that you're able to come back and fill in the stuff after. Yeah.
Okay, last piece of advice, Mr. Duffy.
I'd say, kind of discipline in the ABQ, and then just make sure you're not writing kind of fluff and filler, because
Once upon a time ain't part of this, no?
Yeah, no, it's all kind of keyword based. I'd say in study between now and Leaving Cert, you really just want to test and retest the keywords. Like a business feels nice and easy to approach. It's kind of like, you could open a book, read it for an hour and feel like, oh yeah, I kind of knew that.
But like you
need to
Nike,
just drill, exactly, yeah. You need to just drill those keywords in. I would encourage students to buy like a mini whiteboard, practice at home. Students might kill kill me if I'm saying a parent could step in and test them on some of the keywords.
Well, that'll go well, I'd say.
Checking with the A4 whiteboards. Yeah,
that'll go really well. Yeah. Tell us how you get on with that. studyhub@rte.ie. I hear you though. Yeah.
But between that, just constant retesting and not just rewriting notes, and then just looking at past paper questions and going through them over and over, and they'll go great then if they do that.
And enjoy yourselves.
Yeah.
Listen, Gavin, thank you so much. And Gavin as well has prepared a resource for you to use for the 2024 exam, including that all-important exam layout and timing, sample H1 answers, a focus on predicted questions, we love that, and 2 2024 sample ABQs to practice with suggested H1 solutions. And you'll find them all as well on the RTE Learn Senior Cycle site. Now, I remember when I was doing my Leaving Cert, food became the focus of so much of my day. One of the few treats was, that you were really indulged. If you asked for a particular treat or a snack, it was usually produced and you kind of felt like you owned the fridge. But really, is this a good approach? I don't know. So I'm joined, and delighted to say that we're joined in studio by one of our favourite dietitians, the wonderful Louise Reynolds. Hello, Louise.
Hi, Evelyn. Delighted to be here. And I agree. I think it's one of the subjects where parents feel maybe they can do something because you can't sit the paper for the students, and you kind of feel, okay, if we can keep the fridge stocked and look after the student, and hopefully most students will have somebody who, yes, it's their responsibility as well when it comes to snacking and making the right choices, but a lot of it is preparing, a bit like what Louise and Gavin were saying about the exams. Preparing in terms of eating well. It is a marathon in terms of the sitting down for those 3-hour papers, and you might have one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Our brain is a small organ, and yet it uses about 20% of the energy that we take in every day. So you need to feed your brain. So that's really what I'm talking about. This is not the time to start going on diets or trying new fads or getting your nutrition information from TikTok or whatever. This is the time to really look after yourselves.
Okay.
In terms of eating well. Also then, of course, try to sleep well, keep your exercise going. All of that is kind of a package that comes together.
My goodness, you make it sound so easy. But the TikTok, they love the TikTok, don't they?
And there's some nice recipes on TikTok. We've done that, the feta cheese with the tomatoes and the oregano in the oven with the pasta. That's a nice one. And the marry me chicken, I think, has been trending at the moment.
Well, look, I myself have been on TikTok, and this is what I came across.
It's time to ditch these so-called healthy food swaps. Most slices of bread contain 100 calories, but many wraps have 2 or 3 times that amount. They also contain added fat and oils to make the tortillas flexible. There's no reason to only eat egg whites. The yolk contains fat-fighting nutrients, so opting for whole eggs can actually help you trim down. Granola is basically sugar-coated cereal. Many brands have the same amount of sugar as cereal, but in a smaller serving size. Stick with a low-sugar, high-fiber cereal instead. Veggie chips have more fiber than potato chips, but they're fried and full of oils. Eat chips in moderation and snack on fresh produce instead.
Sensible or not?
Okay, well, there was a lot in there.
There was a lot in there. They speak so quickly in TikTok.
Exactly. You didn't need to bring me in here. You could have just played the TikTok video.
Yeah.
Okay, a few things I heard in there. Yes, eat your egg yolks. Absolutely no need for egg white omelettes. The egg yolk is full of protein. It's also, full of vitamins and minerals, as I said. So, eggs are great. They're a great source of protein.
Love eggs.
So eggs, even for a snack, have some hard-boiled eggs there.
Yes.
You could have kind of hard-boiled eggs with a bit of toast, which is a nice, quick, protein-rich snack that you can have during the day. I think they also... what were they talking about there? Spinach, green vegetables. We always know they're kind of good for us. But, you're not going to get lots of energy from eating green vegetables. So when it comes to snacking, go for something which has some carbs and some protein. Protein helps you to feel more full. The carbohydrate is what actually gives you your energy. So whether you're going to play a sport or whether you're running a marathon or whether you're sitting an exam, carbohydrate gives you the energy, gives your brain the energy. So that's important as well.
So you were talking earlier about that role for families, because like you say, sometimes we struggle how to support. So what am I putting in the fridge for my student? I mean, is the obvious thing is little bars of chocolate to make them, happy.
Yeah. Well,
it's a dilemma. I mean, if you're doing a big long, say Saturday, right? Big long study day, the only exciting thing in your day is the trek to the fridge. Hard to get excited over spinach.
Yeah,
frankly.
no, exactly.
So
and that's not what you're going to reach for.
I presume you're going to say to me, keep an eye on the students feeding and that they're eating regularly.
That they're eating regularly. I think regular meals is really important.
Oh, call them out of the study room and say, come on now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is
Come
lunch.
down and
Get
join the
down
family
here.
for dinner. That's kind of, if there's a family family dinner there, come down and join the family for dinner. It's not, this idea of having to study all day, every day, that's not going to do you any good in the long term. Take a break, go and meet a friend, go for a walk with your boyfriend or girlfriend around the block, or, go and do your sport, play your soccer, or go out and, go for a swim, or do your dance class, whatever it is that you do. I think there's the temptation is to kind of cut back on everything coming up to the exams.
Well, the sense is, and let's be honest, if I lock myself into this cave till June, then I could be having the crack in July. I mean, that's kind of the mentality of it, and that's why food is so important, because it becomes one of the few places where I can nurture as a parent, and you can have a bit of crack, having your chocolate or whatever. So, I mean, is chocolate gone? Is sugar gone? Like, where are we with that?
No, there's no need to cut out sugar. There's no need to cut out chocolate. However, those kind of foods will give you sort of a quick energy boost, but sometimes you might get a slump afterwards. Really, we're talking about snack foods that are going to give you more sustained kind of amount of energy are the ones that we probably kind of know, wholemeal bread, it's going to fill you up for longer, and a slow release carbohydrate keeps you going rather than just a bar of chocolate.
So have that lovely kind of fresh stuff downstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
That will make the student kind of go down,
yeah,
right?
So for breakfast, things like whole grain cereals are going to be better than just a kind of a very refined cereal. So if you like a cereal for breakfast, that's fine. Again, you need to have the foods that the student likes. There's no point in filling the fridge with something that they don't regularly eat.
But what you're saying, which I think is really smart, is what I was talking about is that slight indulgence. I'm being really good studying, so I should eat chocolate all the way through it. What you're saying is actually use the food as part of your study. Like, be aware that chocolate bar is going to knock you out for a few minutes, afterwards. You might get a slump,
enjoy it, come down, enjoy the chocolate biscuits and have a hot chocolate or whatever. But
actually use proper choices to help you.
Even things like if you want to have some chocolate, dark chocolate is a little bit better for you than, kind of a big chocolate bar or a bag of, popcorn is something that teenagers tend to enjoy, some popcorn, and that has some fibre in it as well, and it's probably going to keep you a little bit give you a little bit of nutrition, but at the same time I wouldn't overly don't deny yourself either.
No, but it's a matter of getting eat something that's going to give you that little bit of energy. So say lunch recipes, you've lovely ideas for say what lunch kind of stuff people can
actually
do.
I did hear your TikToker there saying talking about the amount of calories in bread versus a wrap. Forget all that, it doesn't really matter. If you want to have a wrap, enjoy the wrap, go for a high fibre wrap. It's going to again give you a little bit more fibre. Fibre is really important for gut health. And if you're sitting a lot and studying, it's important.
That's what people worry about, that it's quite sedentary when they're
studying.
So
for things like for lunch, baked beans are a really good handy one if you're cooking for yourself, or if you come in after training, or if you come in from school. Baked beans on toast, people think because they come from a tin that they're not that great. They're absolutely fine. They're really high in fibre. Beans are a really cheap source of protein as well. And again, you could have them on a baked potato. Baked potatoes can be done quite quickly in the microwave if you haven't got the time to wait, and do them in the oven. You can put a bit of grated cheese for extra protein on that as well. Things like maybe delicious. A chicken salad, so some lean chicken. Fish is obviously a really good source of protein as well. It's a little bit late to talk about, the fish oils, promoting good brain power. I think you need to...
Yeah, that ship has slightly sailed. We're to tune it out at this stage, I think, at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But
how much water am I drinking? Because it seems like every teenager's going around with Stanley Cups and all this malarkey,
Yeah, hydration
right?
is really important as well, because if you're dehydrated, you can actually feel quite sluggish and you can feel quite fatigued. So certainly do keep hydrating yourself. That is just drinking during the day. Sips on water. Don't wait until you feel really thirsty. We often say thirst is a poor indicator of your actual hydration of your body. So once you feel thirsty, you're already a little bit dehydrated. So keep on top of drinking during the day, regular water intake. Also, if you have some tea and coffee,
go on, tell me how much coffee. Come on,
you're going to get water from that as well.
How much coffee?
Yeah, okay. The caffeine can be a problem, and that's not only coffee; it's also the energy drinks. So we're into a whole other area here. But the temptation.
You were going to say that.
I know they're not great. They're not something. Certainly when you're studying.
What is it temporary? Is it a little temporary comfort, and
it can affect your sleep? This is the problem. You see, if you're building up on caffeine during the day, and the way caffeine works is it actually resembles a kind of a hormone that we produce as we get more tired, and it blocks that in our brain. So as we're feeling tired, that's our body telling us it's time to have a rest. You need to rest as well as study, as well as, do your sports or whatever. So if you're blocking that receptor, that's going to give you the boost, and you'll think, I'll do another hour now, up until midnight or push through. That's not going to serve you well in the long term, because it can affect your sleep. And certain people are more sensitive to caffeine than others, so it doesn't affect everybody in the same way. But certainly energy drinks, coffee late at night, I would be nervous that that's going to affect sleep. Then you're waking up during the night, then you're worrying about the exam.
Sleep is so important.
Sleep is so important, particularly if you're preparing for your exam time. You want to be well rested. And I know that it's natural to stay up late and to pack it all in. There are only so many hours in the day, and very often the sleep hours are the ones that we kind of feed into or eat into those hours. But try not to do that. Just try and...
Finally, Louise, just delve into your personal family life and you as a parent. What is your bit of advice? Because you've actually led by the hand some people through the Leaving Cert.
Yeah, I've had 2 going through it and 1 this year as well.
Gosh.
Yeah, my son is doing his Leaving Cert this year. So he is, an 18-year-old boy. They tend to look for a lot of protein all the time.
Yeah.
I would suggest you don't need protein powders and the same, at 18 years of age, it's all about eating regularly. I think things like nuts and seeds are kind of good snacks to put on top of
stuff.
Put on top of cereals. Dried nut and fruit mixes. They're kind of something that teenagers enjoy. Apples with peanut butter on top. Hummus with crackers or with vegetable sticks. Things like that are really good. Dinners, try and come down and join your family for dinner in the evening. You mightn't want to talk to them. You mightn't want to hear from your older brothers and sisters about how well they did in their exams. As you mentioned earlier, getting grinds from a sibling or a parent might be a great idea.
There's a mental health side to this.
Yes, exactly. Okay. But I do think, as parents, what we can do is just kind of keep things calm as much as possible at home. When the exams are done, have foods that are there. I think for parents, carbohydrate foods, there are kind of breads, pastas, potatoes. Have those as the basis. They're the carbs that your children need for energy. Protein is going to help them feel full. It's really good to have a good high protein intake. And then fruits and veg, loads of vitamins and minerals in there and fibre to keep them going. And of course, treats are absolutely fine too as well. But it's just, kind of getting that balance and not an over-reliance on energy drinks, chocolate bars and sweets. That's not really the way to get through the marathon that you're facing in June.
Listen, if you say it must be true. Thank you so much. And thank you to both Louises for joining us this afternoon for this episode. Gavin, indeed, as well. That's our lot for now. If you want more information, help check us out on our socials. We're on TikTok, YouTube Shorts and RT Learn. It's all on rtlearn.ie. And feel free to add your comments and questions there. But for now, from the team at Study Hub, Spawn.